That wasn't very good, was it, boys and girls? I asked the folks of the Leeds United subreddit, and I think I put in the description of my last video, I completely forgot if I didn't, my bad, asking what they would rate the Leeds United players in the match against Sunderland, and I think there were some really interesting results here, including the man of the match, which I didn't quite expect. Let's take a quick dive into it, and the first issue that I noticed was there was a severe lack of an attacking edge from Leeds United. Normally, you'd expect these players to be at the very, very top of the pile, with Crescencio Somerville being the best of our attacking players with just a 5.46. Very disappointing. And he did what he could to try and unlock the defence, and that early free kick was masterful. It was saved with a fantastic dive, but unfortunately, it didn't find the top corner. If it would have, the match would have been very different, but it didn't, so here we are. Dan James got rated a little bit more low, 4.74 for him. And that's a little bit disappointing. He could be upset with that if he paid any attention to any of these videos, but he won't. That booking has definitely taken a significant chunk off his score, but not as big a chunk as Jorginho Rutter suffered from. Jesus, I'm not having a good one today, am I? Rutter did not do very well. He was strong with his ball retention. He was very, very hard to tackle, as always, but he didn't tend to create the chances that he normally does. This might have been because Sunderland were hyper-organised in defence and there was not much that he could do. But even then, if he's not making any output, he's not making any output, and it's really hard to rate him higher than a 4.08. But he wasn't the worst on the team in the match. The worst was Joel Peru. Joel Peru's entire point is to finish. Although he is a number 10, he's a number 10 that arrives fairly late on the scene, a number 10 that finishes off his chances, and he didn't really get many chances in this match. There was one shot he had fairly late on that was blocked on the line, and although it was on target, it feels like he could have done a little bit better than that, and that led to a 3.79, which is the second lowest rating of the season, only a little bit above when Patrick Bamford against Rotherham won a penalty, claimed the penalty, missed the penalty. Not a good place for Joel Peru to be, but thankfully the attackers weren't the only ones that had a big struggle in this match, because we also had a severe lack of midfield control. The game, where we quite like a little bit of transitional football sometimes, when we had possession in this match, we had it at the back of the pitch. Their midfield was very good at stopping us from doing what we wanted to do. They were aptly pressing Ampadu and Kamara, leading Ilham Melier a lot of the time to just walk out of his box with the ball and go, where's the pass? He didn't have anyone to pass to a lot of the time, which is a massive issue when we're a team that, when we have the ball, tries to play as effectively as we can with it. Ethan Ampadu came out of the match with only a 4.67 because he's the one that takes control in midfield. He's the one that gets pressed when he's got the ball, and he wasn't trusted that much with those passes in this match, and that shows that he was a little bit off his own game. However, he was still a little bit better than Glenn Kamara, who got himself a 4.59 from this match. Also not ideal, but completely understandable, because his nice little tricky bits of football that he likes to do didn't come off in this match. He lost possession a few too many times. He was a little bit loose in the tackle and made the odd mistake. He was a little bit too experimental on the ball. And whilst most of the time that's what he was good at, not yesterday. Against Sunderland, it didn't quite pay off. That's going to happen sometimes, but when it happens when nothing else is going right around you, maybe you stop trying those same things. Next up, we go further back on the pitch to the fairly struggling fullbacks. Jed Spence got a score that surprised me a little bit. He was amongst the highest in the team. He got himself a 5.41, and that's because he was really good going forwards. When he was attacking, he would happily take on a player. You feel like in another world, he would love to be a winger. But we're not in that world right now, and he can't be a winger. And I think a lot of the missing score for him came from the fact that he didn't do that much dropping in. He'd try and chase back, but he just didn't have the pace to keep up, especially when, was it Patrick or Connor Roberts? I can never remember which is which. But when Patrick Roberts. But when Patrick Roberts came on especially, you noted that he wasn't dropping back quite as well, which is a problem when on the opposite flank you've got Archie Gray. Archie Gray was clearly struggling against a probably, let's be fair, Premier League winger in the form of Jack Clark, and that led to him getting a 4.82. Not only that, but he gave away a booking incredibly early in the match, which meant that a second booking would have been very dangerous for Leeds United to suffer, and it meant that Gray had to be a little bit more careful. It meant that he had to give Clark an extra yard or so whenever he was trying to mark him, and that extra yard or so could have been what kept their striker. Was he a striker? I mean, it's Joe Bellingham. He's sort of a striker. And that is what kept Joe Bellingham onside for their goal, which I feel is a mistake from Archie Gray. But then again, it's quite hard to say we lost 1-0 because a 17-year-old didn't mark one of the best wingers in the league properly. We lost because the rest of the team didn't quite click. However, a few positions that did click were the centre-backs. They were pretty solid. Pascal Strout came out with a 5.74. Oh, that was a fun hiccup. And Joe Rodon came out with a 5.44. As much as we struggled, they struggled as well. They didn't create that many chances. They had an XG of very, very narrowly over 1. It was the top end of the pitch that we had our biggest issues. And their chances weren't clear-cut by any means. Bellingham's might be a relatively high XG chance, but you need to consider that it was a ball that Strauch had headed, that somehow their player had headed back into the box completely by accident, and then Bellingham's under it. Nothing that the centre-backs could hugely do against Sunderland, because everything that they could have reasonably dealt with, they did deal with. They mostly shut down the threat from Sunderland, and that's all you can ask of them. It's the other end of the pitch that were struggling more, and I think Strauch and Rodon might be a little bit hard done by here. However, your man of the match was none of the players previously mentioned. It was Illan Meslier, who has once again pulled off an absolute worldie of a save. There was so little that he could do for the goal that he conceded as well. I've seen some people try and blame him and say he was scared of the ball. No, he wasn't. He came out to challenge the shot. He came out spread as wide as he could to try and block as much surface area as he could. Because if there's anyone that's scared of a ball, I'm going to guess it's not the goalkeeper. Goalkeepers need to be somewhat batshit. People have been saying the exact same thing all season because he doesn't catch the ball, he flaps at it. No, he doesn't. He punches it. He punches it fairly well clear, and very rarely is there a problem with that. Meslier made another absolute worldie of a save today, and anyone that is continuing on this Meslier's bad train honestly needs to look at themselves more than they look at the goalkeeper. Then we get to the substitutes, and there was no real impact from any of the substitutions. Jadon Anthony didn't do much. I barely noticed him on the pitch. Willie Gnonto played an interesting role with a 5.31. He played a little bit more central. He played somewhat as a 10. We were in a bizarre situation at the end where we had so many centre forwards up at the top of the pitch just lining up waiting for a cross. And then behind them you'd have Somerville and Gnonto, both playing as sort of quasi-10 things, trying to create an opportunity, and Gnonto did really well, I think. He did as well as he could against what was the lowest of low blocks. Pat Bamford came out of it with a 4.54. Didn't do too much, but he didn't have time to do that much. And Mateo Joseph comes out of the match with a 4.49. You guys seem to have also agreed that this is Farke's first big slip-up, rating him a 4.56, 36. And I can't say I disagree, to be honest. The subs felt like they were a little bit too late. They didn't grasp control of the game. And we went to that default tactic once we went behind of throw all the attackers on and hope that they do the job. And today, throwing on the quality players didn't quite do the job. But all that aside, I want to know what you thought. Comment down below what you think of the ratings, who you think the man of the match was, ultimately what you think of the match against Sunderland, because I thought it was a really interesting tactical battle. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm trying to get this one into a monetizable position as soon as I can. And I will see you later.